Welcome everybody to Bugbears and Brews. My name's Brian, and today we're doing Encounter recap number 29 of our Storm King Thunder campaign. And because I enjoyed doing the last encounter with recap with the beer, we're doing another recap with the beer, and tonight we're doing recap with the Hef. This is a Hefeweizen from Frankenmuth Brewery. I know I've had beers from Frankenmuth Brewery before. I mean, Frankenmuth is what, like an hour north of where I am? But I know I've never done it with this one, or never had this beer specifically. Reading it, it sounds like it's a no frills Hefeweizen, so it's going to be banana, it's going to be clovey. But one of the things that kind of caught my attention with this is it is unfiltered, which not that it's a big deal, but I like it when it's that because it's not as big production-y. It doesn't feel like mass shot out. I mean, I know this is mass shot out, but it brings it a little bit closer to my home brews that I normally do. So having unfiltered, if you look at it, kind of have a little bit of a yeast cake down the bottom. Not much though. So we do have the little wiener dog up front and a little wiener dog on the cap there. I thought that was also kind of fun. So I'm going to pour this, and then I'm going to take a quick sip, and then we will get set. I won't even pour the... Oh, screw it. I will pour the whole thing. Barely fits into my wheat glass. A little bit of yeast made it in there. A little bit off my pour game, but... Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's to me, it's a no-frills Hefeweizen. You like Hefeweizens, you're going to like this one. Take another big swig, and let's get going. So, to start us out, we had a much smaller party than normal. I went into this expecting 8 players. I ended up with 4. Luckily, I always have things to balance stuff out, but even then I had to do some retro balancing, or on-the-fly balancing. But we started with being at this river, and Thessalon had this in his mind from Fizzletink to be very cautious crossing rivers in the Shadowfell. So they're like, all right, you know what? Before we decide to cross this river, let's send somebody north, send somebody south, see what we get. And the scouts came back. The north side, you had a pass in the hills. The south side, you had a marshland that looked like it could probably be passable. You guys didn't really like either of those decisions. So you said, both the scouts, go back out, do a little bit further, go one day out both ways, and then come back. And then we'll talk about what our options are. So from the north, we never got the scout back. So we were like, oh crap, maybe that hill pass is a little bit rougher than we expected. To the south, they said that eventually you can get to a pole barge across the river there. It looked a little unmaintained, so they're not sure how well it would work for you guys. It's a little small, but it's probably doable. From there, you guys talked about a little bit of what you want to do. And you decided, let's go ahead and check out what is going on with the river using Water Walk. One of the things that did throw you guys off with the river, or kind of clued you in that something was not quite right, is there was no fish in there. You guys, the locals were fishing, and nobody ended up landing anything. Anybody looking for stuff, no fish was found. So you went up to the elders, you kind of talked, Pavic went up to the elders and tried to talk them into, hey, let's check this out. And the elders were like, let's just be cautious, let's wait for the other scout. And Pavic got a little pushy and tried to mock them or threaten them a little bit, tell them that they're, kind of belittle them a little bit. And it didn't sit well with them, and they spun it as he was belittling Broomy. And that led to a little bit of turmoil between Broomy and Pavic, because Broomy's already on edge, feeling like you guys are going to leave her. And now the elders are like, oh, they're not only are they leaving you, they're attacking you, and they're thinking you're not making good decisions. And so Broomy just told Pavic to get out. Luckily, though, some of the guards overheard this from Pavic and decided to join them on the Water Walk expedition, because they had enough people to get. Was it 10 people with Water Walk is what it was, if I recall. So a couple of guards joined you, and you guys marched out onto the water there. Beer. The water, pretty clear for the most part. River wasn't moving anything too horribly. And looking down, The deepest it got was probably about chest high. Uh, but looking down into the water, you guys saw little bits of bone, some larger bits of bone, just several areas of bone is really what it comes down to. And Pavik, having the longest arm reach, being a Goliath, he reached down, kind of used the water as a ground, is the way we treated it, and then reached into the water. Uh, Kept on trying to pull on the bones, couldn't get him to come free. They were always slimy, or his grip wasn't quite right. Just couldn't get him. So eventually he said, screw it, and he took somebody's javelin, I think it was Grimac's javelin, took it and slammed it down at the bone. And that's when the bone launched up, and attached to the bone was a Geist. Along with that Geist was about 5 others. And so, I mean, there was a couple others that I described that the NPCs were fighting, the 6 guards as well. But like I said, five or six guys came up, and you guys started fighting. And for the most part, the guys didn't give you much issue. Even with me adding one each round for a little bit there, you guys knocked them out pretty quick. The only time that we really had issues was with Thessalon. One of them crit Thessalon, and then Thessalon also at another point failed his save on the claw attack, which led him to be paralyzed. But everybody else, I think, handled it pretty well. Rondi did the kind of like a kiting method. The Geists were walking the water, so you guys could outpace them pretty easily, while you guys had water walk. From there, though, eventually what wound up happening is these guys kept on dying. They started actually attacking each other. And that kind of made you guys stop and think, like, what the hell's going on here? And that's when, you guys, they all died. You guys turned your back, started walking away, and this giant amalgam of dead bodies floated up out of the river and into the air. And so it had all these skeletal and ghoulish dead bodies and all sorts of heads sticking off of it, and like the spines were sticking out with the head on top of it. And that's when it started shooting shit out. So it was shooting rocks all over the place. It was spitting out river snakes, pestilent bugs, all sorts of weird stuff going on. Some of it like had necrotic screams and so on. In short, I think somebody eventually figured out that it's just a reskinned Beholder, reskinned Death Tyrant, which I will say, when I thought about the idea of using the Death Tyrant, I wasn't expecting there to be 4 players. I thought you guys would probably be able to handle it with 5 players. 4 players I knew you wouldn't be able to, so I did some on-the-fly adjustments there. Especially, at first I let it run with it. Let's see how it works. I didn't bother with the negative energy cone because you guys were already short, and I didn't want this to be a death type deal. And it's not truly a Beholder. It's, didn't have that big central eye, so I figure if it doesn't have that central eye, it can't do that big central cone thing, so let's not worry about that and just focus on the beam type deals. Sadly, though, Pavik did get turned into stone. He got hit with all the river stones, and that turned him into a giant river stone, vaguely in a Pavik-like shape. Grimac was trying to drag him away as he turned into stone and sunk into the water there. Thessalon did a little bit of, we'll call it tanking, damage control, absorption, using blink. He got really lucky, and he would hit and then blink out, and he was really the only one within range when he was doing that tactic, if I recall. Rondi was pretty far off on shore. Grimac not wanting to deal with this thing, and it didn't seem to be chasing. It seemed to be kind of sticking to the river, so I don't know if he just thought maybe if I retreat to shore, it's just going to stay there. Who knows? So Thessalon was out there just kind of blinking in and out of existence. Really good with the blinks, always getting the blink out to the ethereal plane, so that worked out really well there. Beer. But what wound up happening is Rondi got a crit and blew a hole in this thing, and that's when you guys saw this orb inside it, which this was kind of my on-the-fly adjustment on how you guys can kill this thing much quicker than you could normally a 200-point mass. And so this orb, when you guys hit it, if you did X amount of damage, which is the damage I think I put in my head was 10. No, on the orb it was 5. If you did 5 damage to the orb, because the orb had disadvantage to hit it because it was inside and protected through this body. So if you hit it and you did 5 damage, a random head fell off, which means it lost its beam. So you guys were able to take care of a couple beams if I rolled the beam that was already gone, nothing else happened there. So having that there was additional damage to that. It lost the beams, and so it made it far less of a threat. However, when it died, I played a game which is how much can I screw up all of my plans for the campaign? I don't know why the hell I did this, but I really screwed up all my plans, and we'll see. Who knows? But when you guys killed this thing, or shattered the orb, you heard a loud crack, and you guys got to shore, and as you guys are kind of looking around, you hear this low rumble off in the distance. You look, and there's this giant wall of water coming your guys' way. So you guys hurry up and rush up the hill. And I thought you guys were going to be helping like the elderly and the young people get out. Forgive me, I guess that's the side effect of drinking beer while I talk. However, you didn't. So a couple of the elders and the youngins got swept away in the end. I think 6 died in the flood. But yeah, that's what happened. A flood came, and the flood never actually receded down. So that kind of threw you guys off. And this typically you expect after a couple hours the flood might start to recede a little bit, but no, it stayed at its peak, and even after a day, it stayed at its peak. The next day is actually when the scouts from the north came back, and they let you know that they wound up breaking a leg in a rock slide there. So. And as that time went on, and so you guys are kind of trying to figure out what's going on, you sent one group to the south to go check out the pass, the pole bars to see if that was still an option. Things started to appear. So you had a building start to appear. Eventually, it started out as a small foundation, and then eventually came a full-fledged inn. And then there was a small flotsam bridge that started out that eventually became like a footbridge, became a low stone bridge, became like a big stone bridge. And you guys are like, whoa, what the hell's going on here? And Thessalon pulled out this idea from his head. I'm going to use Blink and just see what's going on in the ethereal plane. And he did that, and he saw people all over the place in the ethereal plane here talking about stuff going on in Crow's Crown. So Thessalon's like, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and walk across the bridge and just see what happens. And as he walked across the bridge, he turned back, and nobody was there. He went, he's like, all right, let me go back and see what's going on. So, 200 people disappeared. He goes into the inn, and like inn's lively, it's kicking. Everybody he saw from the ethereal plane was there. So he's kind of asking around what's going on, trying to get a little bit of the feel for the things. And everybody back in the, with the camp is like, hey, where the hell did Thessalon just go? You guys gave him about an hour, and then you guys are like, all right, let's walk across the bridge as well, see what's going on. When you guys walk across the bridge, you come up, and immediately there's like a fish vendor right there on the other side. He wasn't there for you guys to see originally. And you guys kind of piece together that, something happened with either you're in like a different timeline or something like that. You guys went back to the inn. You found Thessalon there. Thessalon looked really ragged. He was there for a month waiting for you guys. Even though it was like an hour for you, it was a month for him. With that, you guys kind of gathered him up, like, let's go head back. Let's go just head on our way where we're heading. You guys were heading to Smeltfield to try to get a boat. As you guys were walking, you kind of confirmed a couple things. The first thing is you confirmed is you guys are kind of back in time is the best as that you can guess. Crow's Crown is still up and around. There is still a monarchy of Shadowheart Kai there, and the Shadowheart Kai are definitely not well loved. So even though you guys were able to get a little bit of information, as soon as they saw you were traveling with Shadowheart Kai, they just shut up. So nobody told you a damn thing after that. Back to the whole Broomy Pavik thing. I will say when Pavik was turned to stone, Broomy was really distraught, felt it was her fault that she got turned to stone because Pavik was fighting with, this fight on her mind there. You guys did bring Pavik stone with you. Rondi went out there with a rope of entanglement, and then you guys lashed a bunch of other ropes onto it and pulled him out, or pulled Pavik out, and then carried it off on a cart. And eventually you guys made it into Smeltfield, and from there you guys were able to get Pavik restored via, I think it's 450 gold based on like the Adventure League guide there. So this whole time lapse thing. I don't know what the hell I'm gonna do. It came about with you guys just kind of joking around about, oh, what if this is us going back in time? You guys are kind of excited because you think this might be a way you can get Broomy to be with her parents again, but you still have this issue of Broomy's still alive in this timeline. If or, there's a second Broomy because Broomy is alive. There's a second Broomy in this timeline now. If this is truly what you're thinking. I don't know. I got to figure out what I'm going to do. And I have a couple ideas spinning around in my head. So, back to the beers. That's where we left off, I should say. That's where we'll pick up next week is in Smeltfield. You guys are trying to get a boat to get to Crow's Crown. Back to the beer. Lovely. I mean, it's a Hefeweizen. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's not as on the banana side as I would think. The clove isn't as strong either. It's probably a little bit weaker on the Hefeweizen for like that. When I think of a Hefeweizen, I think clove and banana. I'm not saying I don't get clove and banana with this. It's a little bit more mild than what I normally get when I brew a Hefeweizen. And I gotta say, I kind of prefer it a little bit more mild. Clove isn't a bad thing, but it can get a little overpowering. This here, it's like a good wheat beer with a little bit of that heavy touch to it. So I would definitely buy one of these, another 6-pack of this. I don't know how much a 6-pack of this is, honestly. I did a mix and match guide. That way I get a couple other beers for future weeks because I feel really bad buying beer because I still have like 4 cases of homebrew in my garage. So buying beer when I have 4 cases of probably 10 or 12 different beers is not exactly smart. I don't know, but I like doing beers that, I like drinking beers that you guys can go out and buy versus like, oh, Brian, I want to brew that. So I had a lot of fun with this. It was interesting running with a smaller table. I really screwed up all my plans. I have no idea why I did it. But let's see what we can make of it. So thanks, guys. I will gladly see you on Wednesday. Have fun. I'm going to drink the rest of this. And then I think I'm going to sit down and watch Castlevania. It came out on Netflix today. Heard good things, even though it's only 4 episodes. Talk to you later. Bye.